Doctor Who Story by Story. Black Orchid Review. Just the facts. Black Orchid is the name of a two-part Doctor Who story that was broadcast as the fifth story of the show's 19th season from the 1st to the 2nd of March 1982. It starred Peter Davison in his first season as the Fifth Doctor, together with his companions Adric, Nyssa, and Tegan, played by Matthew Waterhouse, Sarah Sutton and Janet Fielding. The story was written by Terence Dudley, who wrote the second story of the same season, 4 to Doomsday, and would go on to write another two-part story, The King's Demons, for season 20. The story was produced by John Nathan Turner in his second season in that capacity and script edited by newcomer Eric Saward. Black Orchid was directed by Ron Jones, who would go on to direct 5 more stories in the 1980s, Time Flight, Arc of Infinity and Frontiers again with Davison, and Vengeance on Voros and Mind Warp with Colin Baker's Doctor, with incidental music provided by Roger Lim, who had previously composed the scores for The Keeper of Traken with Tom Baker, 4 to Doomsday, and 4 more Davison stories, Time Flight, Arc of Infinity, Terminus and The Caves of Androzani, with his final work on the series being the Colin Baker story Revelation of the Daleks. Plot. The Fifth Doctor and his companions arrive at a railway station in the 1920s, where they are immediately greeted by a case of mistaken identity and find themselves invited to a cricket match and costume party at the English country estate belonging to a wealthy family, the Cranleys. However, the party atmosphere is soon disrupted by the brutal murder of a servant, a crime for which the Doctor finds himself prime suspect. Guest cast. The guest cast for Black Orchid includes Michael Cochrane, a character actor with many roles on film and television including the likes of Goodbye Mr. Chips, Escape to Victory, Wings and the 90s movie version of The Saint, and who would return to Doctor Who in the 1989 Seventh Doctor story Ghostlight, as Lord Cranley. Barbara Murray, who plays his mother the Lady Cranley, began her career back in the 40s in films such as Meet Mr. Lucifer and Passport to Pimlico and appeared in many television series such as The Plane Makers, Danger Man, Department S and Albert and Victoria. Moray Watson, who plays Sir Robert Muir in the story, was also a long-serving British actor whose most famous role was probably in the 1990s TV series The Darling Buds of May. Trivia. Black Orchid is notable for a number of reasons. It is the first two-part story since the Sontaran experiment back in Tom Baker's first season in 1975. And the first story to be devoid of science fiction elements other than the regulars and the TARDIS since the 1967 Patrick Troughton story The Highlanders. Sarah Sutton, who plays Nyssa, gets to have a dual role in this story, with the character of Anne Talbot, the fiancée of Lord Cranley, turning out to be her identical double. The working title for Black Orchid was The Beast. The story was novelized by original writer Terence Dudley in 1986, and released on video in 1994 as part of a twin pack with the preceding Fifth Doctor story The Visitation. It was later released on DVD in 2008, with an audiobook reading of the novelization released on CD in 2008 read by actor Michael Cochrane. The story is listed on the Region 1 DVD releases as the 121st Doctor Who story, a numbering system that correctly includes the 4th Doctor story Shada. A DVD copy of the serial was also included with issue 152 of the Doctor Who DVD Files magazine in 2014. Reaction. Black Orchid was the highest-rated story of the Peter Davison era, gaining 9.9 million viewers for Part 1 and 10.1 million for Part 2. The serial was received equally positively by fans of the time, being widely regarded as an excellent story and a long-overdue return to the format of the pure historical not seen since the 1960s, and this view persisted well into the 1990s. However, actor Peter Davison was not a fan of the story, rather bizarrely disliking it precisely because of the lack of science fiction elements, and because Doctor Who fandom is rather notoriously composed of 99.9% fucking sheep. The actor's irrational prejudice began to seep into fandom's own malleable psyche, and the story is less popular today than was once the case. What I think? Well, with all due respect to Peter Davison, fuck him I say. The actor's dislike of the story is particularly ironic given that Black Orchid is actually one of the best stories of his entire era, and also one of the few stories that the terrible trio of Adric, Nyssa and Tegan, not exactly my favorite companion lineup, come across as generally naturalistic and likable and nowhere near as wooden as they usually are. Black Orchid is a good old-fashioned slice of Agatha Christie whodunit sampled into the Doctor Who format with extremely satisfying results. With excellent turns from the leads, Davison gets some particularly funny lines, and the guest cast and some sumptuous production values. I loved Black Orchid when I first saw it as a kid round about 30 years ago, and I watched it again just last week for the umpteenth time, and my opinion has not changed one iota. I love this story and I have zero hesitation in awarding it a well-deserved straight A.